All right, welcome everybody. I am your host, Dr. Ian Bulow, but this initiative is all about the Pittsburgh Providers, which is an initiative that we started a couple years ago on the heels of a community page that was more for a local community in the North Hills up here called Around Cranberry Township. But when I saw the success of that page and engaging the community, I thought we should do the same thing for the greater Pittsburgh area. And it be based around the topic of health and wellness and medical innovations and things like that. Pittsburgh is, I think, a little bit of a diamond in the rough when it comes to healthcare. I think that the medical landscape across Pittsburgh is pretty darn progressive and pretty darn great when it comes to traditional medical approaches as well as alternative medical or alternative healthcare approaches. I use the quotation marks because chiropractors are a little bit, we have a chip on our shoulder, like it's real healthcare. But my point is, invasive, non-invasive, any kind of treatment protocols you want, Pittsburgh's actually a pretty great place for it. And so for a long time, I've been interviewing and getting to know providers in the region, and anyone can look that up right now on social media if they follow the hashtag clinical conversations, plural, with the S at the end, hashtag clinical conversations. But this is the first one where we're going to have not just one provider, but we're going to have a few of us here on this call talking about a given topic. So the goal for tonight is to spend probably about half an hour to 45 minutes allowing the different professionals that are on this call time to introduce themselves to you and a little bit about their practice and how what they do relates in particular to soft tissue injuries as well as injury prevention. So all of our panelists will have about 10 minutes to introduce themselves. I don't have a bell or a whip, but you might see me bugging my eyes out if you go over 10 minutes. Or if you see Dr. Savage and my hand comes across the screen like this, that because she's sitting right next to me. But we'll each take about 10 minutes to introduce ourselves. And then what I'd like to do is provide an opportunity for all of our attendees, of which we have quite a few on the call right now, to be able to ask questions. So if you are an attendee, as we're giving our descriptions and just chatting a little bit for the first half of this webinar, if there's a question you have, fire it away, okay? I'm gonna make sure we address your questions by the time the webinar is over. And if we can't address them in the time frame that we have, we'll definitely commit to following up directly with you. But with that said, I'll just introduce myself for starters, and then I believe we're gonna go in an order. Myself and Dr. Savage, we can chat about kind of our practices and what we do here in Cranberry. But I know, Dr. Scott, you have to jump off in a little bit early today. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm in the middle of a sports medicine conference virtually, so kind of appropriate. Awesome. And we have a discussion starting at 7 Eastern, so I'll be with you all for an hour.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, as a mentor of mine once said, school is never out for the pro. And so if a mark of a good doctor or physician is well, there's a lot of different marks of a good doctor or physician, but always learning is one of the biggest ones in my opinion. So I will give a brief introduction for myself and Dr. Savage, and then she can kind of take over. But I'll tell you kind of a little bit about myself. She can take over so that cumulatively the two of us can give some context. But my name is Dr. Ian Bulow. I founded the Revive Upper Cervical Chiropractic Clinic, which Dr. Savage and I run in Cranberry Township. I grew up in the region. I just didn't like the idea of blood and guts. I always wanted to help people, but I had a little queasy stomach in high school and college, and but I really love people and I love helping people. And about halfway through chiropractic college, there was this patient with a pretty bizarre, rare pain syndrome called trigeminal neuralgia, which they nicknamed the suicide disease in medical circles because it's a very debilitating pain syndrome that just attacks your face. And this guy, as he was sharing his story, and he's probably at this point in time 70 years old, and he's talking to a group of like 20-something know-it-all students, and he would stop every now and again and he would say, "I told you guys I love you yet?" And that like blew me away. Like, you know what I mean? As this like overeducated young adult to have this senior kind of just be very vulnerable, because literally this specialty called upper cervical care had really saved his life, because upper cervical has to do with the upper neck, and Dr. Savage can relate to how that deals with soft tissue injuries. But just for my background, I kind of specialize after meeting these patients that really had their lives changed. And my sister's a physical therapist. And so I didn't really want to graduate doing physical therapy, because that's what Dr. Davis does. She's a DPT, doctor of physical therapy. So it's like, why would I go do physical therapy when people go to school for that? It's not my business. You know what I mean? And my older sister, and she always had that chip on her shoulder where physical therapists would do chiropractic. She's like, chiropractors would do physical therapy. She'd always go into their clinic and say, who's your therapist? Who works for you that's doing physical therapy? So I always picked that up from her, like, hey, it's called professional courtesy, man. We're good at what we do. And I have this general inkling that in healthcare, as consumers, we should all be after the best, right? We don't want the discount healthcare. It's not like, you don't want the Walmart of healthcare, with all due respect to Walmart, and I shop at Walmart from time to time. But I just figured, if you're going to do something, do it right, do it really well. So I got into chiropractic full on, and then just, from some patient testimonials, I just started getting into the niche. Maybe Dr. Savage can kind of pick up with that and kind of just summarize just your background a little bit, and how what we do kind of relates to soft tissue stuff. And then we'll kind of kick it over to Dr. Scott.
That sounds good. Now, are we sharing a 10 minutes, or do I have my own 10 minutes, or?
You can take, I think you'll be fine. I think you're good. I allowed for 10 minutes of an introduction, but I realized my intro was done in 3. So I'm like, I'll give you a little more of my background. Why don't you unmute your mic so the Zoom will kick it over to you. You're going to do great with the mic.
Is there an echo for anybody?
There is. I'll fix it in a second. There's that. And that. Should be good.
Okay, are we still good? Can you hear me? Is there an echo? Awesome. So as Dr. Bilo mentioned, my name is Dr. Emily Savage. I am a graduate of the lovely Sherman College of Chiropractic, which is down in South Carolina. But before I ever went to chiropractic school, like Ed kind of mentioned, he spent some time in the Shenandoah Valley. I attended Shenandoah University, where I got my BS in exercise science, and I had a double minor in both biology and dance. So dance has always been just like a really, honestly, huge part of my life. I danced from the time that I was like 2.5 or 3 years old. Basically, like when you can, put your kids in dance and that they'll pay enough attention and kind of get an idea of what they're doing. And I did that up until I graduated from college. So that's like a solid, 19 or so years of being really active in that. Also, while in college, I met my wonderful husband, Kyle, and he is a multi-sport athlete. He played baseball and football, and he played college lacrosse, and he has now transitioned from being the athlete to now coaching lacrosse, which is a lot of fun. And I'm sure a lot of other providers here have had the experience where a lot of people want to know, like, why did you get into this, right? Like Dr. Bilo was already kind of mentioning. And so for me, chiropractic care was always something that it helped me return to dance after just kind of like a hiatus. And it was also something that really kept me going and able to keep taking classes and keep performing. So I got into it for, selfishly, people like myself who want to get back and be able to keep doing what they love. So like athletes of all walks of life. So that's what I love. But in terms of upper cervical care, like people typically have some kind of idea when you say the word chiropractor, but upper cervical is kind of like a different ball of wax. And so when we talk about it, we typically talk about how it's a very vulnerable area of your spine. It's more mobile. And so when we have different types of accidents and injuries throughout life, because it's so mobile, it typically is going to sustain more damage than, say, the rest of your spine does. So that's a little bit more delicate, and we just want to take care of it that way because, as you can kind of see on the poster behind me, you've got a lot of important structures up there, like, your brain that you want to take care of. And so typically when we see people come into our clinic, a lot of times there's just an imbalance within the body, whether that shows up as like a head tilt or a shoulder tilt. It may show up somewhere down the line with an imbalance in the hips or a short leg. All of those kinds of things are things that we're looking for. And so we kind of use the upper cervical spine as like a steering wheel, if you will, to kind of help correct all of the other things that may be going on within the rest of the spine as we can. And so in that way, it really kind of helps us to prevent injuries just from imbalances within the body and overworking certain muscle groups and things like that. But also just helping people continue to perform at their best. I had an anatomy teacher in college, and on a bonus question on like every one of her tests was blank determines blank. And the answer was always structure determines function. And so that's something that I've carried with me for forever. And so a lot of times when you're thinking about your spine, it's not something that you can see. And so a lot of people maybe don't necessarily always think of like, oh, well, my spine's out of alignment, but it's probably, everything's probably fine. I still feel good. Everything's good. But if you think about it in terms of like your car tires being out of alignment, that's kind of like a red flag for a lot of people, right? You're putting a lot of extra wear and tear, not only on the tires, but on your whole car, and just things don't really run as smoothly. So it's really the same thing for imbalances within your spine being out of alignment and working to correct that so that you can get back to kind of that tip-top shape and peak performance. So we've taken care of a number of athletes from all walks throughout, I mean, really since you've been open, but definitely a good number since I've been here as well. Like we've got golfers that always know when things are awry, when their drive is not as far because they're tight in their hips. We've got triathletes and power lifters who know that like, what is it when the dumbbell doesn't, like they don't fall equally?
I was just going to share that. I'll show people this. It's actually pretty cool, but that's a patient of ours that he knows his spine's out of alignment whenever he does his deadlifts or his squats, and the bar is way off.
Yeah.
And so like it clicks on one side before it clicks on the other. And we know in terms of injuries through research that if you can't squat with a balanced way, you're definitely more likely to injure your knee, your hip, your back, like a lot of different things. And that was about a day apart before and after he came in and got his spine kind of realigned. So I thought it was funny you thought about that, because I was just bringing it up.
That's great. But yeah, so just honestly, people from all walks of life. We've even had a few dancers here and there who come in and they're like, I know, like, as soon as I get adjusted and I go take a class, there's a difference in my balance and how sharp I can be and my lines and this, that, and the other. And so for us, really kind of the biggest thing in terms of just like injury prevention and keeping people from performing is making sure that everything's balanced. And there's just kind of that proper line of communication between the brain and the body so that it can function the way that it should.
That's awesome. That is fantastic. I appreciate you sharing,
Dr. Savage. What I'm going to suggest is that we'll save questions as we go through. And see that you were like 5 minutes, 8 minutes. She was worried. She would not have enough time. You had plenty of time. You're good. That's right. That's right. So that I think really summarizes what we try and do here at the center. Was just kind of a balancing thing, and we can get into it a little bit more as we go. But I'm excited to learn more about you guys. I know about us. So, and secretly, I started this initiative selfishly because I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn about what everyone was doing. So let's shift gears, and I want to introduce Dr. Emily Scott with Regeneration Pittsburgh. And I'm trying to remember the impetus other than we always wanted to connect with you guys because your name had popped up a lot, just as being a facility that handles a lot of people in pain, but then also with performance and recovery with a lot of the work that you do, it's obviously kind of hand in glove with what you do. So when we were planning this webinar, you're at the top of my invite list. I was like, oh, we got to get Regen Pittsburgh on there. So why don't you take a minute, introduce yourself and the practice and a little bit about, now it's obviously, I mean, for you, soft tissue injuries is like such a wide topic for you because I'm sure you see a ton, but see where you can take us and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, thank you so much for the invite. I'm honored to be here to represent Regeneration Pittsburgh, we love working with you guys. I know what great outcomes our patients have when we work together. So yeah, Regeneration Pittsburgh opened 5 years ago this March. Dr. Tom Burnett opened the practice, and he brought me on board in August of 2021. So my background is in primary care sports medicine. So I started my journey at Duquesne for undergrad, where I got my BS in biology, minor in psychology and voice performance. So Dr. Savage, we're both a little left brain, right brain. And then I went on to study medicine at the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine. So I am a doctor of osteopathic medicine. And for those of you who are not familiar, we have MDs and we have DOs, both of which can practice medicine in the United States, pretty much equivalent degrees at this point. 50 plus years ago, they were a little bit more different, but they've sort of blended together over the years. Same board exams, same residencies. So MD and DO are kind of on par with one another. So after I got my Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine degree, I went on to do my family medicine residency at the Washington Hospital, which is just south of Pittsburgh in Washington, PA. And I landed on family medicine because I loved it all. And family docs do it all, right? They see kiddos, they see athletes, they see older individuals, geriatrics up until palliative care. I mean, and we did a lot of OB as well. So literally from birth till death, which I loved. And as I'm going through my residency, I just found this passion for keeping people active. And a lot of the times the limiting factor was pain or injury. And I found that I was able to help them with those injuries to get them moving, to either prevent or treat chronic diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, depression, you name it. I mean, we all know what great movement does for us on so many levels. So I found myself applying for a sports medicine fellowship, and I completed that at the University of Pittsburgh, where I was one of the team docs for a bunch of different teams, including Pitt men's wrestling, Pitt women's volleyball. Was the team doc for Shaler High School. I covered Robert Morris men's and women's D1 hockey, Pittsburgh Ballet Theater, and a multitude of others. It was a busy year, but I learned a lot and really fell into a specialization of ultrasound guided procedures. So I have the ability to use my ultrasound to diagnose musculoskeletal soft tissue injuries, and then use that ultrasound guided imaging for soft tissue and joint injections. So that's really what my specialty is. So that being said, at our office at Regeneration Pittsburgh, typically it's someone that's coming in with a problem, right? We're not your preventative people per se. On a rare occasion, we'll get someone that comes in, you know, what can I do to prevent soft tissue injuries? Or a lot of our patients are wanting to know what they can do to prevent injuries in the future, so that they can be active for a long time. But most of the time, our patients are coming in with some sort of complaint, whether it be low back pain, sprained ankle, knee arthritis, shoulder arthritis, rotator cuff tears, you name it. Today, I treated an 8-year-old with an ankle sprain and a 98-year-old woman with knee arthritis. So really full spectrum, which I love. So it's really coming down to what is their complaint. And we do full history physical exam. And I feel like DOs that have a lot of cross ties with my chiropractic friends, we look at the body as a whole. We do a full evaluation. So if you're coming to me with knee pain, I'm looking at your low back, I'm looking at your hips, I'm looking at your feet. We're looking at the whole kinetic chain. If I can find out why that happened, why this injury pattern is happening, you're going to walk out of my office with 3 or 4 exercises to do to bridge you to the full circle of care. And by that, I mean, rarely am I treating this patient alone. I'm getting you in with my chiropractic friends, a sports chiropractor, upper cervical chiropractor, physical therapy, massage therapy, because truly the best outcomes for our patients are when we're working together, honestly. So typically we try to start with conservative management, meaning whatever we can do that is non-invasive. So things like chiropractic care, physical therapy, topical treatments, oral medications. Sometimes soft tissue injuries require a little bit more. Sometimes muscle spasms, we treat with dry needling, trigger point injections, which help to reduce muscle spasm. Tendonitis or tendinopathies or partial tendon tears, we can treat with injections. That would be steroid injections, which I don't love, but sometimes they're indicated. PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma, which I can talk more about if people have questions. Prolotherapy, which works really well for tendons. Same thing for partial muscle tears. We can do injections in there. If there is a joint injury, we can do injections into the joints, PRP, steroid. We have some other regenerative options, like we have the ability to harvest our own fat or adipose, which can be used mainly in knee arthritis to help with cushioning and regeneration of the cartilage there. Bone marrow aspiration, we have the ability to harvest our own bone marrow for orthopedic purposes, which mainly works for knee arthritis and other things within the joint, not so much soft tissue. So yeah, we're kind of full spectrum sports medicine. Any sort of musculoskeletal complaint, we can help you figure it out and help you treat it. One other thing along the lines of soft tissue treatments that we recommend a lot of, most of our patients are walking out of our office with magnesium. I don't know if you guys are fans of magnesium. Yeah, I'm seeing some head nods, some thumbs up. A lot of soft tissue tightness, muscle spasms is magnesium deficiency, believe it or not. Most of us in America, even if we eat a well-balanced diet, our food supply is almost half as nutrient dense as it was 50 years ago. One of the big ones is magnesium, and our muscles and other systems in our body need magnesium to function optimally. And so my patients that come in with tight muscles, muscle spasms, trigger points, they do better long-term with magnesium. So yeah, that's a lot of rambling and a lot of, yeah. So trying to,
it's great.
Impact everything we do into a couple of minutes, but yeah.
Well, I think honestly, other than just kind of our introduction as hosts, you're sort of like the best person to start with in a lot of ways, in that you guys are sort of like the top of mind when people are in pain. You know what I mean? For better or worse, it seems like anytime in injectables, people are thinking, I got to get a shot of this or that, you know? Yeah. And because you technically probably have a couple minutes, could you differentiate or describe to people how, like, there's the pros and cons of steroid injections? Because I think what you guys offer that's unique is the opportunity for more appropriate options beyond steroids. Because I feel like a lot of the times when patients go to their general practitioner, steroids are just the knee-jerk answer to a lot of things. But one of the things I learned in the Difflamate program that we were going through was just how steroids, like you even alluded to it, you said we don't love them, but sometimes it's appropriate. So where's that line in the sand? When is it appropriate? When are there better options? And what are those better options in your clinic?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's very few indications where a steroid injection is my first line of treatment. Few rare occasions would be bursitis. Bursitis is an inflammation of a bursal sac, which is a fluid-filled sac that protects bony areas in our body. We have dozens of them. Most common areas to get bursitis would be shoulder, lateral hip, over the kneecap, are probably the most common ones that I treat. Still, even with that, I'm starting with conservative management. I'm starting with my PTs. I'm seeing what we can do soft tissue wise. You usually get bursitis from two things: traumatic impact. We see that a lot in the elbow or the kneecap, or an imbalance in the biomechanics. That's what we see mainly in like the shoulder or the lateral hip. If it's a biomechanical issue, I want to fix that. I don't want it to come back when that steroid wears off in 3 months. So we're targeting the source. Patients who suffer from, I'm going to jump to knee arthritis. Okay, that's like probably the most common reason people get steroid injections. When my patient cannot tolerate additional care, chiropractic care, physical therapy, they can't sleep, they can't work, they can't pick up their grandkids, they can't do what they need to do, we talk about the pros and cons of steroid, one and done. But that steroid is meant to bridge them through a care plan, through physical therapy, through chiropractic care, so that they can tolerate the care, so that when the steroid wears off in 3 months, their biomechanics are optimal and they don't need any more steroids. That's like best case scenario.
Yeah, no. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I love that. And I think when we circle back at the end, I'd love to get into maybe, like you had mentioned, the descriptions for folks that maybe don't know what PRP injections are and things like that. Well, maybe save that. Well, actually, I know you have to end early, so you have to leave us early. So maybe for Dr. Scott, if you could, in a quick nutshell, if someone is looking for something other than a steroid, because steroids have their limitations in what they do, just what are those other options folks can get in case we don't circle back to you specifically? You can take a minute now and just define those other interventions that are similar but different, that is kind of unique to you guys and folks that specialize like you do.
Absolutely. And I'm going to leave my email in the comments. So if any listeners have specific questions or they're interested in coming to see us, I'm going to put my email in the comments. So PRP, that's probably the most widely used orthobiologic right now in orthopedics. PRP is platelet-rich plasma. So that's where we take the patient's blood, about 50 to 60 cc's of blood. We spin it down in a centrifuge and it separates the blood by weight. So at the bottom, we have the heavy red blood cells. At the top, we have the platelet-poor plasma. Right in the middle, the platelet-rich plasma. And so those platelets are concentrated with growth factor, healing factor. And I like to explain to my patients that when you get a cut on your skin, that skin is highly vascularized. You have a lot of blood flow going there. So those growth factors, healing factors are able to go to that spot. They're able to heal it, okay? Things like knee arthritis or tendonitis, not great blood flow in those areas. So we're skipping a couple steps and we're taking those growth and healing factors, putting them right where we want it. And those growth factors, healing factors, over the course of 6 to 8 weeks, they improve or they reduce inflammation and promote healing. I'll cite one study really quickly. They looked at meniscal tears and MRI pre and post MRI, and it actually showed that the PRP regrew some density of the meniscus. So there's actually radiographic evidence that PRP heals. So big fan of PRP. We also do prolotherapy, which is sterile sugar water that induces injury. Mainly use it for tendons, particularly hypermobile tendons, to help kind of tighten things down. The sterile sugar water is identified by your body as an irritant. So, there's irritation there. We need to go and heal it. So it promotes healing factors in your body to go to that area. Not as potent as PRP, but still can work very well for particular indications. I mentioned adipose, which is fat. We actually do micro lipoaspiration from the patient's abdomen or flank, where we extract the fat, we wash it from all cell debris, and we're left with the adipose cells and extracellular matrix, which allows the cells to grow into. Works really well for moderate to severe knee arthritis. And then the bone marrow aspiration, again, most of our hematopoietic stem cells live in our fat and our bone marrow. So we're able to extract our own stem cells from our body, put it to where we want it so that it promotes healing. And some of those cells can differentiate into cartilage cells, meniscus cells, tendon cells, you name it. So really, really innovative stuff. I didn't come up with it. I'm not working in the lab. There's much smarter people than me. I'm just using it in clinical application. We're seeing really good results. So
yeah, no, that's fantastic. No, I appreciate you sharing. I know hopefully you can hang with us and until you got a roll, but I wanted to dive a little deeper because I know I put some notes down to circle back with you, and then I realized, oh my gosh, we may not be able to. So,
Thank you.
so appreciate everyone giving Dr. Scott a little extra time on the front end just because she's got a roll. So our next person that I want to feature is Pamela Stevens, who I met through a patient, but interestingly enough, has a product or service that I actually saw first on the Regen Pittsburgh website some years ago, because they offered a bit of the Beamer service as well. And then, and so Pamela Stevens, you could just introduce yourself, a little bit about Beamer and what it can do for folks, both in, acute injury management, as well as perhaps even some performance and prevention. I think, give you the ability to share your screen, Pamela. I know you said you had kind of a presentation, so you can take it away and tell us a little bit about yourself.
And I will keep it short and sweet. Hello, everybody. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be in such beautiful company, and really great to hear from each of you so far, and look forward to hearing Dr. Amhine and Dr. Davis as well. So very simply, my background simple, but Emily, by the way, Dr. Scott, if you need any adipose tissue, I'm happy to donate. No. Okay. No, but real quick, in Regeneration Pittsburgh, one of the things that I love that you guys offer are the IV drips loaded with vitamins and minerals and all that beautiful stuff. So just wanted to put a plug in for that. Right. Yeah. So I actually am the one who introduced Beamer to Regeneration Pittsburgh. And Dr. Thomas Burnett, he's a cool guy. He's all right.
Right. Yes. We like Dr. Burnett.
Yeah. Busy guy. But anyway, very simply, my background is bodywork therapy. I did a fusion of massage therapy techniques, physical therapy techniques, did some myofascial release, trigger point therapy, craniosacral, did all that stuff for a lot of years, which beat the heck out of my body. And quite frankly, Beamer was introduced to me because I was so beat up. And the friend that introduced it to me said, you got to look at this thing. And I'm a huge skeptic of everything by nature. It's just my nature. I always lean back and say, what is this? And when I started digging, and I went into the National Library of Medicine and I saw some of the studies, I was a little surprised. And I told him I would call him back. And at the time, it was much easier to search. Like if you go to scholar.google.com, it's a better way to search for things more medical in nature, as opposed to Google, which is like an advertisement for them. And PubMed.gov, those are the two things that I used. But when I saw what this did, I said, oh my gosh, the Germans figured it out. They figured out how to get the blood to the tiny vessels, right? So the reason that I stopped doing what I was doing is because I was doing outside in, and I was helping people as far as technique. And Beamer goes all the way to the mitochondria of the cell. Anyway, when I bought mine sight unseen and started using it 8 minutes twice a day. And the first thing I noticed was more energy. The second thing I noticed was my mobility started to get better and better and better. And it took a little while for that aspect. The energy came right away for me, but the issue in my joints, after 3 months, I wasn't reaching for that bad stuff anymore, Advil, etc. And I knew we had something pretty special here. So it just kind of took over as I started sharing it with people and getting incredible results. And so today, really, the topic is about, right, soft tissue injury recovery and prevention. So our bodies are electric, right? We're electrical beings. Now I'm gonna do this for a second. Okay. I'm gonna get rid of my background for a second. Now I'm going to get rid of my background for a second so I can show you this. So this is basically what they call a, right? This is the conductor of electricity. Open circuit, closed circuit. If I was in a room with 30 people and each people put one hand and everybody linked hands, the last person to touch this, it would ignite it, because we are electric. We're of course chemical, we're multiple things, but we are first and foremost, we're electrical beings, right? So with that, I think instead of me trying to really explain Beamer, I have a 3-minute blood flow video that I want to show you, that our head of medical is showing you what happens when a person lays on this for 8 minutes. Because Beamer, it is not PEMF. It is in PEMF category in some places, but if you go to Germany, there's PEMF, which is pulsed electromagnetic field. Some people call it PEMF. And then there's Beamer. Beamer has taken the PEMF coils, but what they did was we took some of those basic signals, the sinusoidal, reconfigured it to mimic your body's rhythms. And the body's responding to it like a song. Beamer, the difference between Beamer and PEMF does what it does in an inductive type of therapy, but Beamer takes that signal, targets the microvessels. And what are the microvessels? That's our functional part of our circulatory system, right? You got your heart doing this all day long, pumping into the arteries and veins. If you go to a cardiologist, what's he looking at? Your heart, your arteries, your veins. The microcirculatory system is 3/4 of our circulatory system. And after the arteries and veins, the precapillary vessels do this. And what happens with age, trauma, genetics, stress? These things slow down dramatically. The Beamer signal awakens them and causes that vasomotion again and perfuses blood to the capillaries. So now the cells that were deficient in oxygen are receiving and utilizing up to 30% more oxygen and removal of CO2, among other good things. It's a great delivery system and a great adjunct of therapy. It's a very good complement to chiropractic and numerous other things, because it's just going to get the body working more efficiently. I tell people it's like turning the body on and the body begins to do its own healing, which is the goal. So I'm going to show you this brief video, hopefully.
Is there audio to it, Pamela?
Well, there should be. There is audio.
Okay.
If you have the ability to.
If I don't hear it, I'll wave my hands, or I'll let you know, and you could just describe it. Sometimes with these calls, I'm not sure,
Yes.
but go ahead and play it and let's see.
Okay. Okay.
So right now I'm not hearing anything, but we're seeing it.
Can you see the whole thing?
Yep.
I can't extend that.
In terms of the audio,
Okay.
though, I'm not hearing anything. So you could probably just walk everyone through it as it shows it. Because I think at least part of this presentation I'm aware of.
Hang on.
Do you want to explain it for those
Hang
that
on a
are
sec.
watching?
I can fix that. Hold on.
Is a zoomed in view of a local area of microcirculatory vessels. And on the left side of the screen, you're looking at an arteriole that's vertically orientated, and on the right, also oriented vertically, is a venule. The small vessel that is branched off horizontally on the left is a capillary.
Now.
Arterioles
Yeah,
are
we can hear it.
bringing oxygen-rich blood into the capillaries, which then deliver the blood and its components to the cells, which are vital for these cells to function. You can see the blood flowing clearly in all the vessels here observed, but the little capillary is not being adequately perfused with blood. Therefore, the cells do not get what they need to work properly. You're going to see here Also, that there's no vascular movements or oscillations occurring with the arteriole on the left side, which should be. In addition, there's restricted blood flow, there's poor perfusion, and diminished venous return. Too much of this going on, and you're going to feel tired, you're going to feel sluggish, maybe even experiencing cold hands, cold feet. But one thing's for sure, poor blood flow can be the precursor to many issues that people experience every day, and they don't even know it.
This is only 2 minutes.
Let's take a look here at what happens to the Beamer after it was only turned on for 3 minutes of treatment. You'll already start to see this increase in blood flow. You can see the capillary open up. There's an increased arterial flow. And what you can also see is this increased venular flow, returning carbon dioxide back to the lungs and clearing out the waste products from our body. Here we are after 6 minutes of Beamer use. I want you to pay special attention to the right side, this venule, where the white blood cells are rolling over the endothelial walls of the vascular lumen. Think of it. It's like the cops or the police being out on the streets patrolling and protecting you. That's your mobile immune system. When your blood is flowing, when it's moving, your immune system is more vital. If your blood is not functionally flowing, you can't possibly have a high-functioning immune system. Therefore, you're not protected. You can think about it this way. If you're perfused, you're protected. Now we're going to take a look at, and we're going to see the lingering effects of Beamer after only 22 minutes. So Beamer was already done for 8 minutes, 22 minutes after application. So 30 minutes after starting therapy. The effects of Beamer therapy, while temporary, have been documented to last up to 18 hours for some users. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But the fact is, Beamer is an incredible tool to support your local circulation and keep you performing at your best.
It's really cool.
There you go.
That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So I cannot explain that as well as the visual. And of course, our Dr. Burka laying it out for you. So the reality is you can see why this is used in so many venues. Really, there's, of course, people who are having issues, right? They're having discomforts, they're having pain, they're having dysfunction. This is just helping your body to function. Whatever modality you're using, the Beamer's just simply helping you help the body with whatever else you're doing. It's great, actually, when you're doing injections and infusions, because it's a great delivery system, right? When that vasomotion is occurring so much more efficiently, the body is becoming nutrient rich, oxygen rich, and of course, removal of CO2 is just as important as getting stuff into the cell. You got to get the garbage out. So that's, my favorite thing to share with people, because to me, it's a mic drop. This is what's going on. This is what your whole body's awakening. And, with this stuff happening in the world and illness, the body's immune system is a great tool, right, to resist. Yeah. As well as, magnesium is super important, as well as, of course, many other nutrients. But I find a lot of people are deficient in magnesium pretty consistently, which is amazing. I love that,
Pamela. And I love what you said about it helping be a delivery system for anything that's like a chemical intervention, even nutritional chemical IV intervention, just to help speed up delivery and waste removal, and Pamela, when she mentioned about being a bit of a skeptic, I was too. One of Pamela's sales folks or colleagues mentioned the Beamer to me, and I said, I don't need another device. I'm a principled chiropractor. I only do chiropractic. Like I said, I don't do physical therapy, don't do anything else. I don't need a device in my clinic. And then a good friend of mine was all over Facebook with it. And I thought, what the heck? So we put it in our room. We rest people after their adjustments for about 20 minutes to allow the adjustment to settle in. So the Beamer, one thing for those that don't know, it looks like a yoga mat that you lie on. Now there are different applicants, so you can target the wave, but the main mat is this body mat that you lie on. And so I had people lying down anyhow. So for a month, I just told people, go lie on it. I don't know what it is. Try it out. It may work. It may not. Just see what you think, And there's definitely a category of people that have immediate results. There's a category that takes some time, but the one that had media, a lot of people that they mentioned in the video, the Raynaud's, the circulatory issues in the hands and feet, people with chronic issues. It's almost like chiropractic, that it's such a broad benefit. It's almost like drinking more water. You know what I mean? It's like, who could benefit? Well, I mean, if you're dehydrated, it's going to help a lot. If you're a pretty good athlete, you still want to drink water, but we'll circle back and talk more about it. But thank you. I think that video is such a cool video. It is so awesome.
Yeah, it's literally only 3 minutes. So, it lays it out in that period of time. And by the way, it's a phenomenal product for athletes. We've got all types of athletes that use this. Tom Brady has been using it for about 7 or 8 years.
That guy. Who's that guy?
I know everybody loves him in Pittsburgh. I know, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Mike Weir, the golfer, Mike McGuffin or Tyson McGuffin, he's a pickleball dude. All these guys love it. But since I only used about 5 minutes, I'm going to take one and just share a neat story with you guys. Because I don't know if anybody here is into cycling. There's a race that happens in the United States every year. It's called the Race Across America. And these various teams race other teams, right? It's international. People come from all over the world. It's actually more grueling than the Tour de France, right? This one goes 24/7, starts in Anaheim, California, and they cross the entire United States, up mountains, all the way to Annapolis, Maryland. So this past year, last June, we sponsored an 8-man team, Beamer did, and these guys trained with the Beamer. I was hoping to have the video as 2 minutes, but I can't get to it. So anyway, no matter. These guys had 8-man teams riding that was the race, these 8-man teams. And they trained with the Beamer, and there was a Beamer van. So these guys, they do it in tandem. They go 2 by 2, they go, then they jump off the bike, 2 more get on, and they just keep going 24/7 across the United States.
Wow.
So they Beamered every time they got off the bike. They were laying on the Beamer, wrapping knees, whatever they were doing, right? So of course, who won the race? The Beamer team, the Beamer sponsored team.
Lucky. They got lucky. No, I'm kidding. That's awesome.
They set 2 world records, and guess how far behind the second place team was?
How far?
25 hours. And
I thought you were going to say 25 minutes, 25 hours.
25 hours. And the average age of the cyclist was 46 years old. These were not young dudes. So, and it was a mix. They were no better in rank than any other cyclist. The only difference was they used Beamer the whole way. So the endurance and recovery thing for athletes is a big, big deal. So I just wanted to share that.
Absolutely. My daughter stole it from our clinic because she's a high school athlete, and now I can't get her back in the clinic because she uses it all the time. We're going to move on to Dr. Jessica Davis, who I'm sure sees a lot of athletes as our physical therapist of the group here. Yeah, I know I got introduced through a patient of ours that just sang her praises. And I do want to say too, what we're going to do with this webinar, and hopefully everybody is enjoying it so far. I know that I am. Please, like I said, throw questions in the chat. But what we're going to do when we conclude the webinar is all of our presenters will send me a link or to get a hold of them, and I'll send an email blast out to everybody. I'll probably give it to my IT person. They'll send it out tomorrow. So you'll have all these links, right? So if you want to get a hold of Miss Pamela, you can. She can send you information on the Beamer. If you want to talk to Dr. Scott about what the latest is. And Dr. Scott, I want to send you a link of the recording as well, because you definitely don't want to miss what Dr. Edwin Amrine has to share. He's amazing. And so I'm going to make sure you get the recording, and there may be questions that pertain to you specifically when we get to the end and kind of open it up. So just as a housekeeping thing, everyone will get an email link to this recording, as well as some custom links from each of the panelists in case you want to reach out to us afterwards. So just want to make sure everyone knew that. Okay, Dr. Davis, thanks for being here. Why don't you give everyone a little bit of an introduction into your practice? Because I know you've got a pretty booming practice. Is it 7 fields, I believe? Is that right?
7 fields, yeah.
Maybe
I actually have 2 locations now. So 7 fields in Hampton.
Very good. Very good. I grew up in Richland, but practice on Cranberry, but that's amazing. So yeah, give everyone the lowdown. What got you into it, and what do you love seeing, and what are you currently seeing in practice nowadays?
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you all for having me tonight. And I'm really enjoying meeting all of you and listening to all of your backgrounds. And I have to say, my performing artist, passionate side of myself is just enjoying this evening with Dr. Savage and Dr. Scott's experiences, because right on, go dancers, yay. So that's what got me into my business, being a PT. So I was a dancer, pre-professional level, PBT. So Dr. Scott, long time ago. But I had an opposite experience of you, Dr. Savage. I didn't have the best care. So I had a PT that just didn't understand my art. And I felt very discouraged. And of course, being an athlete myself, I was like, well, I'm not listening to this PT, who cares? And I just did my own thing. So it's funny and ironic that now I'm a PT who, one of my specialties is treating dancers, but I became interested in PT because, again, I wanted to work with people. My sister was in med school. I saw how freaked out she was every day coming home from med school. It scared me. I thought, well, I don't know. So I chose PT, which ended up being a very, good career for me. And I love it. I worked out West in California initially, and it was a great place for me to start because I had the great fortune of that multidisciplinary approach to care, you name it, open to working with everyone and seeing the success that, I always tell my patients, all I care about is in the end that you're better. And I truly believe that that multidisciplinary approach is the key to success. So I'm a big fan. So then I came back to Pittsburgh. My specialty and passion is manual therapy. And then I'm fellowship trained. So I went to go pursue my fellowship with the hope that it would help me become even better as a manually trained clinician, but was surprised to realize that more of the emphasis of my fellowship was in clinical reasoning. And we talk about the clinic, like the kinetic chain. And PTs basically, we're movement specialists. We look at people, and I think my dance background helps. You look at a person and observe their movement. I love that picture of the squat, the back rack, because my business partner, she's a CrossFit athlete. So we have a practice. It's funny. We have a ballet bar, and then right across, we have a big squat rack. So kind of an interesting approach and eclectic, but it works for us. So I love looking at the human body and thinking about how can I problem solve and figure out, how to get this kinetic chain working. So a lot of the injuries that I see in my practice with the performing arts world and just general patients in orthopedics that I see are a lot of overuse injuries, which I love. That's my favorite thing, is figuring out, how did this injury occur? Why? Because a lot of it's that analysis and figuring out, okay, so let's talk about what forces are coming through this area, what's off, what are you doing? And then I will say, over the years of practice, I've seen PT expand, thankfully, because we have a bad rap sometimes of underloading our patients. And I'm a big fan of load. We know so much about loading the human body and how that peaks performance and stimulating those muscles and getting them to perform at their peak, and how that prevents future injuries. And so coming from a dance background, back in the day, I was told not to go to gym class because heaven forbid you developed muscles, or heaven forbid, I see the shaking heads. It was, so foreign and feared. And it's so sad because I think about now what I do with my dancers and how I train them. And I think, gosh, I wish I had that knowledge back in the day. I would have been so much better. But that fear of, wow, I have a soft tissue injury and that pain, and then what am I going to do with that tissue? Now I'm going to load it. Really? Are you sure? And that's what we're finding, is that, our bodies really are resilient more so than we knew. And that when you look at it, even from the cellular level, that by loading that tissue, it responds favorably. And so you want to load that tissue, you want that strength to develop. And so that's something that's been a change in PT that I'm a big fan of. And so that's kind of what's gotten me to my career where I am. As far as my practice, I opened up my practice. We're in our 5th year. We started in Mars, and my business partner and I wanted to do something that was a little bit unique. We treat one-on-one. We have no ancillary staff. So it's a little bit different than the traditional PT model. And we were just, we've been doing this a long time, and we just wanted to break the model and be able to have the time with our patients and to work with them and figure out those kinetic chain issues and look at the human body and how it moves. And so that's how we practice. And then I have some other specialists in my practice who deal with triathletes. And so we kind of brought that in, runners and mountain bikers. So we have sort of a eclectic group, but we work well together. And that's kind of how I got it. And then I opened up in Hampton, and just keep going on. That's what I do.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. And you said you brought in some other specialists. So what are some of the different services? Because I know you summarized pretty efficiently, so I'll give you a quick follow-up here. But like, what are some of the you mentioned the word specialist. So what are some of the different offerings that you guys have in your clinics with the different people that you have? And is it a lot of active rehab, it sounds like? Do you do passive as well, or is it primarily active?
So primarily active. We do have a laser, a cold laser in our clinic. And we have e-stim that we'll use, but we pretty much use our hands. We're fellowship trained manual therapists, so we use our hands. And in addition to that, we load our patients and work with them and figure out, how to get the body moving. So in addition to that fellowship training, the other specialties that we have, we are ASTIM certified. So ASTIM is a form of instrument-assisted soft tissue work, but looks at the whole kinetic chain. So we don't just do a local region. So it's very methodical. Working on the entire kinetic chain and it's a little more gentle. So we go to a slightly different angle. And so I'm actually involved in some of the research right now. I also teach full-time at Duquesne University. So go to you, Dr. Scott. That's my background. I graduated from there too. So I teach in the PT department there. And so we're doing research with ASTIM. But if you look at ASTIM, it's a form of regenerative medicine. It's very effective at, yes, getting blood flow to the area, yes, causing a little bit of trauma, but micro trauma, breaking up those adhesions local to the area. But then we also found that it actually stimulates the nervous system. And that's the exciting research, is we're seeing that it's actually immediately effective in increasing muscle performance. So I get that pain reduction in a client. And so then immediately with that pain reduction, I can have them do something functionally that they were limited in before. And so that carries over those effects over several days. So we're ASTIM certified. I do have a clinician that's dry needling certified, so he does dry needling. And then we do professional bike fitting for our mountain bikers out there. And we offer running analysis, where one of our fellowship trained PTs will go in and look at your running mechanics and look at the whole body again. So those are and performing arts and CrossFit and general orthopedics. We love those too.
And it's funny when you mention running analysis, I think of Dr. Edwin Amrine as a segue, because he's one of the first people that I ever saw wear toe shoes. And I don't know if you know, I was about this close to wearing the V-Roam toe shoes in my clinic, but I wear a suit and tie, and I was like, it'll clash too much. So real quick, before we move to Dr. Amrine, Dr. Davis, barefoot running. Middle, low, high? What do we think?
I wouldn't consider myself the absolute expert. I would ask my running expert on that one. But, I always tell my patients what's working for them. So, for example, I have a dancer that I was seeing, and she was told, wear a shoe to protect your foot. Well, she's a classical Indian dancer. And so everything they do is barefoot. And so when I saw her, I said, why are you wearing shoes all the time? And so simply by getting her out of her shoes, and when she was walking around her house, it was a life-changing. She said, I can activate my muscles. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, that kind of works. The body's supposed to use, you're supposed to use your feet. I love treating the foot, by the way. Oh, I love that. So anyway, yes.
I love it. I love this group. There's a common theme. I don't think, there's an accident in bringing this group together. Everyone's kind of recognizing, like, at the end of the day, the body's going to have to do its thing. And so whatever we do is designed to help the body perform at a higher level, you know what I mean? And maybe perhaps organically the way it's supposed to, like with your feet, go figure. But I'll let Ed talk a lot about that. I met Dr. Amrine at Palmer College. We were classmates. Edwin graduated before I did, but Eddie, I'll let you introduce yourself, but I really appreciate all that you do. He looks at things in such a cool way when it comes to performance and just body movement. I mean, I don't know. I never know how to describe what you do, Ed. So I'm curious to see how you do it now, because every time I try, I'm like, well, you know, the paleo diet for nutrition and eating, it's kind of like that, but for like moving. It's like paleo moving, you know what I mean? So maybe you can describe it better. I'm sure you can, but please introduce yourself to everybody.
Well, hello, everyone. Yeah, Dr. Edwin Amrine. Dr. Edwin is cool. Yeah, I met Ian back in chiropractic school. I think originally through him and his wife, Christina, were martial arts students of mine. So all this dance connection stuff here, like, what about, where's some love for a retired break dancer up here? But so did a lot of breakdancing back in the day in college, and used to go down and compete at Club Laga actually back in the day in Oakland. And but then
amazing.
I met
That's
Ian.
amazing. Shout out to Club Laga for all the people in this Pittsburgh Providers group that remember Club Laga. May it forever live in our memories.
But so then Ian and Christina, they were coming down. We had another mutual friend that actually Ian graduated with, and him and I ran a capoeira group. So I don't know, did the dancers, you familiar with capoeira?
That is.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So, right, a very dance oriented, but also martial arts game. It's really fun. I miss it. Don't do it too much anymore. But as far as my background, so many parallels with everybody here, but with Ian as well, I had full intentions to be a medical doctor back in the day. I knew I had the grades for it and everything, but also kind of think growing up on a farm, I didn't particularly love butchering chickens and wasn't quite my thing. And I also it was like a high school girlfriend. Her dad was a guidance counselor for another high school. And so I graduated from Slipper Rock High School, and he was a guidance counselor. So he was very good at just asking good questions and listening to young people. And he knew I was super into martial arts and the outdoors. And I was very proud of being very straight edge and everything. And even though I had super long hair and would wear kilts to school and do crazy things, and I just wanted to do family medicine, and he definitely was like, oh man, how are you going to feel sitting behind a desk and handing out prescriptions and for things you yourself try to really avoid? Obviously there's a time and place for everything. And he really got my brain going down that path, and then it jogged memories of my dad. It really helped him. He started going to a chiropractor when I was like in elementary school with some lower back injury stuff. They were threatening injections and surgery and things like that. And eventually the whole family started going. And I remember having a lot of headaches and migraines as a kid. Maybe that contributed to me being actually a little bit of an introvert when I was young, because I hated loud noises. I hated big groups and stuff like that. And we started going to the chiropractor, and I could count on one hand how many headaches I get in a year. And it's usually because it's sinus or too much whiskey in the woods camping, but so that I really forgot about chiropractic, and that guidance counselor brought that back to my attention. And they had some chiropractors in the family and some, I forget some other thing. I think they introduced me to yoga too. I'd never heard of or done yoga before. And it just sounded like that would be a great fit for me. And started at Pitt. I went to IUP. Out there, we were teaching capoeira and breakdancing actually out there. And I ended up really sick at one point. And so I'm definitely a jack of all trades. Like I said, I can identify with everybody here And I guess a quote from D.D. Palmer was always like, "Nothing is below me if it helps, alleviate the suffering and of my fellow human being, right? I'll try anything. I'll help. If I don't know about it, I'll just do research with them to point them in the right direction. I definitely don't claim to know it all." But got really sick.
For those that don't know, D.D. Palmer was the founder of the chiropractic profession in 1895, and that's a great quote. He's a humble guy and
a humble dude.
Just for clarity, that's a great quote. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's always stuck with me. No, totally. And I got really sick in school at the end of undergrad, and when I knew, and I'm gonna get emotional, but I got really sick for a number of weeks, and nobody had any idea what was going on with me. Ended up in Elwood City Hospital for like almost 2 weeks. I lost like 30 pounds or something, and you can't tell on video, but I'm not a big dude.
Yeah.
And nobody had any idea, right? And they were pumping me full of IV antibiotics, and eventually they were like, "You just got to go home. We really don't know what's going on with you." And I mean, they had all kinds of pathologists there and public health folks like asking me if I've been out of the country and all these things. And it was my mom that really was like, "Oh, this is all stress related, right?" And so when I went out to chiropractic school, we had to do this thing called rights and responsibilities the first weekend out there. And they just hit you with this, like, you're gonna be helping people, right? So you need to heal yourself and address your own issues and, your own past traumas and family stuff. I almost swore. And that's how I really knew I was like in the right place, like the philosophy of chiropractic, right? And then there was a pathology teacher that, he might remember the name. I think he taught medical schools before chiropractic school. And he was kind of a rough dude, but he was real blunt, right, about stuff. And I loved it. And he always said that, the Greek root of doctor is really a teacher and guide, right? Like, we are all our own healers. We don't really heal anybody else, right? But all we can do is guide them with, education and maybe all these different modalities and tools and techniques we have. But at the end of the day, right, it's all stimulus, right, to help the body actually heal itself, right? Move tension, create tension where there needs to be some, remove it where there's too much. Education obviously is huge, right? Because recovery, I mean, you have to, if you're going to talk about injuries, you have to talk about sleep and optimizing that and nutrition and all these different things. So that teacher like made a big impact on me. So for me, I've trained with so many like strength and conditioning coaches, and I love the way physical therapy has gone over the years. Like, you just see like truth is always gonna rise up, right? Like, it doesn't matter what we do, what, our particular, field that we're in, there's gonna be a ton of overlap. There has to be, because again, it's gonna be what's actually true and what's really helping people.
That's wild. And it's almost like over the course of the hour that we've all been chatting, we've gone from kind of uber specific and kind of what Dr. Savage and I do and Regen Pittsburgh, and then Pamela kind of opens us up to like a whole body kind of awareness of circulation, and then Dr. Davis. And it's kind of like, now, Ed, I'm having a hard time pinning you down, because you are one of these guys that just take it all in. So it's almost like insulting to ask you what you do with each patient, because I'm sure it's probably different. Like, you know what I mean? So, but in the spirit of this webinar, it's sort of like, what are you looking for? Because I know that you're looking at things a little bit differently. And I think that's what I love about you. And when it all comes down to it, I know, like, I think when the first time we met, you even talked about just having someone squat, like just seeing how their body can move in these super basic movement patterns. And maybe you can kind of address that. Like, if someone has like a shoulder injury or hip injury, it's like I said, you're so deep in your knowledge base that it's kind of like, that's not the point. The point is all of this. But then how do you take someone with this one thing and kind of slowly introduce them into that bigger picture?
Honestly, a lot like Dr. Davis said, I'm a one guy, one table place, and it's just spending a lot of quality time. You get so much from a history, just talking to people, watching them when they come in, right? My old office used to be on a second floor. And, and people would think I'm joking that I'm already analyzing them, how I hear the door slam or not, or, are they huffing and puffing coming up the stairs, and, what's their attitude when they get up there, right? Because attitude, and whether you're pessimistic or optimistic, I don't care what kind of treatment it is, could be the best treatment in the world. If somebody is too connected and attached to their illness or their whatever deficiency they have, it's going to be real hard to get better. So the people that come running up the stairs, even if they're in pain, they're excited to be there. Like, you kind of know within the first visit or two, like, who's going to have the best outcomes, but yeah, for me, I'm a detective, and to me, like, no conversation is off limit. A good example, I had a woman, she just sent me a cool text saying thank you. Like, she came in so jammed up, and for sure the adjustment and the soft tissue work and everything I did on her, it was helped again to create the stimulus. But because I spend so much time with people, it was the conversation, right? That was the real adjustment, because she was on the verge of trying to start a new business, and just so much anxiety, right? So much all this yang energy instead of being yin and being down here, right? And and one visit, everything released appropriately with the manual techniques, but it was more of like, what are you worrying about? Why are you so worked up? Why are you so tense? And having quality conversations with people. That's mostly, I think, what I do, quite honestly, right? And just being
a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and being a detective, and right, and it's already been mentioned. Really looking at tension in the body, right? And through all these kinetic chains. So using the tissue work and using the adjustments to help change that. But yeah, if you can't identify those things in somebody, these deficiencies, these weaknesses, then they're going to just go out and live, and without the education, they're going to just, you got to start, gravity doesn't stop, right? Stress doesn't stop. So you're going to keep, defaulting to these old patterns. And you have to teach them how to load differently. And right. And so people have been like, their normal has been here for so long. They're like, they think they're equally connected and creating tension equally. It's like, you're not. Right. And sometimes you got to like overcorrect them, right? To like wake that up and make them really feel like, get your left hamstring to fire, damn it. Like, it's not doing anything right now.
I know.
So there's so much overlap. And right. And even Pamela, like, yeah, if somebody comes in with an injury, like, everybody's being told that they need to pump. They need to pump the system. And if they're injured, then we have to deload it and find the easiest pump. I don't, if it's laying on your back supine and just freaking pumping in, your feet and ankles. I don't care if that's what it is. That's what it is. Get on a bike, get in a pool. But if you want to heal, right, you got to have freaking blood flow. So again, everybody's going to be encouraged, to do some kind of cardiovascular. And I do dive into a little bit of supplements. So yeah, magnesium, that's definitely the biggest thing I sell at the office. But like, I don't know if anybody knows, like, Gotu Kola herb. I'll definitely use cayenne pepper supplements and Gotu Kola. And I love telling people to drink bone broth, make it on their own if they're into that. But definitely, yeah, such a multifactorial. I just want to be people's guide and partner in their healing journey. And again, whatever way that looks, to me, none of it's really off limits. And it's cool because I definitely have patients that I get good feedback. I've heard from, folks using Beamer and how that helps. And I definitely have a bunch of folks that use Dr. Scott. We actually have a mutual friend that she's gone now, but I've had tons of patients have had good luck down there, and that they've really served them well. And then I definitely did some sleuthing on Dr. Davis, and I was like seeing her stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's an awesome PT clinic. Like, I'm gonna refer there because my dogma is movement for sure, and the mind-body connection. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome, brother. I love it. And I think the goal for this evening was to give an introduction to people in the region. And it's kind of really cool because you see how each one of us has sort of a different entry point. It reminds me of a mentor of mine, Dr. Robert Brooks. He said that God put truth in a box and we're all looking through it through different holes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so everybody's, in a lot of ways, people that have integrity and study and make it their life's work to help people are people of truth. And the more we can collaborate, I think that's great. And I think that people need to find their access point. You know what I mean? So they might vibe really well with Pamela and just trying some things that they can do and take charge of on their own at home and with her help. And then some people might be in dire need of something fast. You know what I mean? So maybe Regen Pittsburgh. I know we tend to get into some of the weird, bizarre overlaps between functional and structural issues just because of the balancing of the head and the health of the brain. But I think at the end of the day, I wanted to make these introductions, and I think people just have to take accountability and responsibility for as much as we do. At the end of the day, everyone's got to take responsibility for their own life and their own health. But to your point, Eddie, a lot of these providers, we all are guides to one another. I learn from everybody all the time. That's why I do these things, And so I'm going to open it up to questions for about 5 to 10 minutes. We could, I don't know, there's preamble, and then what is there? Postamble? I don't think that's a word. So I have some thoughts on what some of the people said, but I don't want to be the only one yammering on, because I do that. That's my skill set. It's my gift. I can do that. But I don't want to steal from the floor. So if you have questions, those of you that are watching, please do ask them. We're going to chat for another 10 minutes about a couple more things, but I want you to ask any questions. Now's the time to ask if you want to get a direct response. Otherwise, like I said, there will be a follow-up email. You'll get this recording. The email will come with some direct links. I'm going to ask everyone on this call to send me those links, whichever your preferred link is for people to get in touch with you. Just shoot me an email with that link, whether it's your website or your email, your phone number, or a QR code, or what have you. But I am my observation has been, when it comes to movement and injuries, we shared that picture of the guy with the barbells, and I've always had this, and maybe it's an inaccurate belief system, but I've always had this belief system that, like, a lot of the traditional movement therapies, whether it's physical therapy or massage therapy or what have you, do an excellent job at correcting posture in the sagittal, or excuse me, the coronal plane, like coming up here versus here, you know what I mean? But then when we talk about balance and posture in this direction, when people are twisted here and twisted here, in my observations, a large part of that is just a confusion of the brain, like a cerebellar dysfunction. Like someone who has a scoliosis, it'd be really great to tell them, just stand up straight. And they'd say, oh, I just got to stand up straight. Thanks, doc. But it's a confused brain, the same way like a really nasty Dowlinger's hump or a spastic paralysis. Like people with a scoliotic twist in the sagittal plane here are really, I'm curious on how some of the, and you guys had mentioned some of those things. I think the A-stem, you had mentioned, Dr. Davis, and you were giving visuals like this. I know, Eddie, you were talking about that. I look at a lot of that, like if we balance the weight of the skull, because when we're talking gravity, the head's really heavy. So if that's off, everything just kind of like stacks down. But I'm curious how you guys approach distortions in that plane of movement. You know what I mean? Because I think that's a critical missing piece. I mean, everyone, they say, oh, stand up straight. They do this, but they don't do this. Because like, how can they tell? You know what I mean? And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up, is that I think a fun at-home test for anyone watching this is quite simply to get 2 bathroom scales. And as long as they're calibrated correctly, you stand on it. Your body weight should be split probably within like 5 pounds on either side. But if you're carrying 20 extra pounds on one leg, it's not like a big sort of shocker that your knee's going to be worn out on that side. You know what I mean? But I'm curious what you guys think about that in terms of just postural distortions in this kind of plane of movement here. Any thoughts on that?
Have you opened it up for questions? Because I thought.
What's that?
I said, have you opened it up for questions? Looks like someone's asking a question.
Well, there was a message from Dr. Scott earlier that she had to run. So you might be seeing that notification. Oh, I'm sorry. It's right there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, we can get back to the, it's funny. I didn't even see that. Thank you, Pamela. And it's a question from Laura. And it said, Pamela, can you elaborate about the body being electric and how it relates to the beamer use? Yeah, that is a good question. Are we all Frankensteins walking around with electricity? What do you mean by that?
It's a good question. Yeah, so
Great
I mean,
question.
Inside the cell is ATP. That's adenosine triphosphate, right? That's the cell's energy currency. Where there's energy, there's electricity. You know, let me just say, Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And it is true. What happens if the energy of your cell stops? The cell dies, right?
Nice.
So the beamer signal, it was designed to mimic the body's rhythms in a very, very controlled frequency. It's a very gentle expression. You don't feel it. People will lay on there and say, is it on? Some people will feel a little warmth and tingling. And frankly, that's just blood flow. There is no heat coming from the mat, right? So, you know, these little things, these phones, right? They're emitting about 1,200 microtesla. Because people say, what if someone has a pacemaker? Well, they can ask their physician, but the fact is the maximum emission of a beamer is 150 microtesla. It's very, very subtle. The full body mat, 35 maximum. So anyway, that energy, frequency, vibration is coming from our bodies. It comes from the earth. It comes from plants. And it is simply life. It's movement. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love the theme of the evening being around movement, because on a micro level, and there's so many things that we talked about that tie together. Dr. Amrine quoted D.D. Palmer, the founder of chiropractic, and he said he founded chiropractic on tone, this idea that most molecules vibrate or resonate at a certain frequency. You know what I mean? And D.D., as a chiropractor, looked at the nervous system as being the thing that animates the tissue cells. You know what I mean? That like creates that vibration, so to speak. But either way, the reality is that there is a vibration, and that cells do work on, when you look at the cell channels that let, like we talked a lot about magnesium, that let certain minerals in and out of the cell, those are all based on polarity, positive and negative charges. And so I know when I first met Pamela, I was like, how does that help? What is the mechanism of action? Like I see that it works. I saw the video, but how does that work? And like one of the theories in there is how it resets the polarity of the cells. The cells then give off a bit of, I think it's nitrous oxide or nitrous dioxide, which you can get in supplement form, but this just allows the body to release it naturally. But yeah, I mean, any of us that grew up in labs where we like put a little electrical diode on a frog leg and makes it jump. There's a conduit of electricity in our body all the time. And even, again, circling back to chiropractic, sorry, it's just chiro heavy tonight, but even they called, the analogy they used for the brain was like the great dynamo, like back in the early 1900s, they were like looking at like a power generating station. So they would have this, you know, like Michelangelo's atom, like I think it was atom, the human body from the front, you know, they would have these old diagrams where the brain would be like this power plant. And then it would show like a wire going down to the body part, you know, because it is an electrical chemical system, you know, so definitely without question. So that was a great question. And thank you, Pamela, for bringing that up. Olivia Rogers asks thoughts on massage for preventative and rehab care. I'm going to let Dr. Davis answer this one, because I feel like we've been chatting a lot and I haven't heard from her. As someone who has a lot of manual, you did this earlier, so I'm pulling that back. What are your thoughts on that? Thoughts on massage for preventative and rehabilitative care?
Right. I mean, I absolutely incorporate that in what I do with my patients. I mean, you can't argue the power of touch. And so the right type of touch, right? So, and if you look at studies with people who are in persistent pain, one of the things is calming that nervous system down. And so for different people, there's different strategies, whether it's mindfulness or laying on something warm or just being with your friends and being social. But another very powerful thing is massage, and having that touch and the right type of massage technique, whether it's you prefer deep tissue or soft tissue, everyone has a preference. And so I always tell my patients, I'm a big fan. If it works and it's helping you manage your condition and it's making you get to that level of functioning every day, then why not? There's nothing wrong with that. We are meant to be social beings, and we're meant to be physically touched. And so, I am a big fan of massage. Yes.
Yeah. And I have to say, I absolutely would have had a massage therapist on this call. I would have had an acupuncturist on this call. At some point we had to cut it off, but I mean no disrespect by not having a licensed massage therapist on the webinar tonight. I know it has a huge role to play in circulation. And then also you guys mentioned about the adhesions. There's a book out there. I'm curious who's heard of the book Anatomy Trains. That's a kind of a fascinating one that just talks about the interconnectedness of the fascia and how the body just runs on these certain lines of tension. And so a really good manual therapist, whether it's a physical therapist or a massage therapist or a chiropractor, will be able to locate those bound up myofascial trains, and that can help in the world of prevention, and then also on an ongoing basis just for wellness. Give me a break. I mean, there's probably a million benefits to all of these different services and modalities that we're talking about. Ed, you unmuted. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just with massage therapy, like Dr. Davis was saying, like, there's such a use too of desensitizing the area, right? Using whatever, if somebody's been in such chronic pain for so long, right? And they're literally wiring those connections for pain, and now their nervous system and their brain it's interpreting this traumatic thing happening to like this super light touch. It's like, there's no trauma here, but why is it being interpreted that way? So definitely using massage and sometimes you have to go really easy with that. That's where I like had a lot of chronic pain folks where I've actually liked the use of the Theragun and stuff, because it gets them to, on a daily basis, they can give their brain a different sensation, right? As they try to reteach all the receptors and proprioceptors to, like, hey, we need to start registering movement again, not pain and trauma, right? Again, probably Dr. Davis would know those things way more than I do. But I do enjoy bringing that stuff up to patients that, it's like, if you've been like this for so long and people are like, I got a bad neck, I got a bad back, like, do you really? Or are you just wired that way now? Like you've habituated these patterns so much for so long, that everything is
a scary thing.
Yeah,
unwinding
it is scary,
from
right?
that.
And again, that's where in education and right, that's where sports definitely therapy, right? Like sports counseling, right? No doubt that is a big role, right? At a high level athlete is, even though in the clinic, on dry land or whatever, like they show that their tissues and joints can be reloaded, and yet there's so much fear wrapped in, like, you're never going to get back to the full, it's like you're trying to operate with the parking brake on, right? It's not going to happen. You're not going to go that fast. You're not going to react the way you need to react because you're scared, that's going in all different ways.
Love the analogy of the parking brake. Here's what we're going to do. We are about out of time, but what I'd like to do is give everyone 30 seconds just to kind of any last words that you have as panelists. And then, like I said, anything else that you want to give to our attendees, you can send to me. I will put that in an email blast to everybody. So I'm going to call on Dr. Savage. I called on her first. Oh, Pamela's got to go. Pam, unmute, give us your goodbyes. And then I know you got to jump off. We're all going to close out and we'll close this down, but please, Pamela, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much. And I really enjoyed hearing each of you. And I think the thing that I love the most is I can tell you guys are all in this with your heart. You know, true healers are working from their heart. You have a tremendous amount of knowledge and care. And I was just very, very grateful to be with you all. And I mean, I left my email in the chat if anybody wants to reach out or has questions, but I hope to get information from each of you and stay connected and be able to share your information with others. So thanks so much. It's been an honor.
Absolutely. Thank you for being with us, Pamela. I really appreciate you.
Sorry,
and appreciate all you do for everybody. No, go. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Savage, I am going to turn my sound off so we don't get reverb here. And I'm going to give you a quick 30 seconds to say goodbye to everybody. And we'll
continue to close it down.
Sounds good. I would say thank you for having me, but you forced me to do these things for my own good. But I am just so appreciative of all of you guys, really, because there are people like Dr. Davis who I've been like trying to connect with for, I think, forever at this point, just because I was like, dance, let's go. But there's just so much knowledge and so much passion from all of the panelists. And I know you do just incredible work for your patients and would trust you, obviously, with my own life, but definitely look forward to collaborating as much as we can in the future.
Fantastic. Speaking of that, Dr. Davis, any last words for everyone joining us today?
I just am, again, very thankful to be a part of this, and I'm super psyched to meet all of you and get to know your specialties. And my brain's just kind of working a million miles a minute. Ooh, I know who to send here. I know. And so I'm looking forward to collaborating. And for all of you out there listening, I would agree, find a provider that cares and is passionate. And you can tell the difference, patients known. If you don't ever feel that way, seek one who does. So there's a lot of power there.
Amen. Amen. Eddie, last words. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. The cardinal foul. Go ahead.
See, I got it. Yeah, again, thank you. And I agree. Exactly what Dr. Davis said. Exactly. There's so many talented, smart people that care and want to help. But there's also a lot of cookie cutter BS stuff out there too. So, right, like you got to be your own advocate. And like she just said, like, if it's not vibing right, or you feel like a number, you vote with your dollar, right? You vote with your time and energy. Like there's plenty of people that want to help. And of course, do we want to make, a decent living at it? Of course. But I know for myself, I put care and education and connecting with people above whatever I'm going to make.
Yeah.
So, but no, thank you for having me. This was fun.
No, absolutely. Thanks for making the time. And for those that are joining us or have stuck with us this whole time, thanks for spending your time with us. We did start this initiative at Pittsburgh Providers on Facebook and Instagram currently. We're eventually going to have a website that'll have a lot of these recordings. It'll have a referral map. It'll have everything you need. But for now, just stay connected at Pittsburgh Providers. We also started a Facebook group called Pittsburgh Patients. And that's where you guys as consumers of healthcare, and we're all consumers to a degree, obviously, can communicate amongst each other, almost like a educated support group. Like, who do you know for this, or what's good for that, or what have you found, with this? So Pittsburgh Providers and Pittsburgh Patients, check it out online, reconnect. We'll shoot you an email with all the information. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. Good night. I'm going to shut the call down now, guys. Thank you again for all of our panelists. Thank you for everyone for joining. Have a wonderful evening and a great start to your spring. Stay healthy. We'll see you guys. Bye-bye.